What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. How's the form? How are we all getting on? So the All-Ireland group stages commenced at the weekend. We obviously saw some big games, some big results, and we've 4 more games happening this weekend. Dublin are playing Roscommon, Donegal are playing Tyrone. We've got Louth versus Meath and Armagh versus Westmeath as well. So 4 games to preview. Only 4 games this weekend in football. No Tailteann Cup action taking place this weekend. So a relatively quiet weekend in terms of football championship action. Hence why it is just me here today to preview the games. But nonetheless, anyone tuning in, hit the like button, subscribe. If you haven't already, would very much appreciate that. If you could share this out to your friends and family, to anyone you think might be interested in more GA content, that would be absolutely great as well. And let me know your predictions for some of these games in the comments down below. And without further ado, let's crack into it. So we'll start with Dublin versus Roscommon taking place in Croke Park this coming Saturday. We'll be there, looking forward to the game and everything else. And yeah, I mean, look, it's a bit of a repeat of the game last year. I think a lot of Roscommon fans not entirely happy with playing Dublin obviously again in Croke Park. I mean, I think we've drawn Roscommon in like every GA group stage that's possible if you're going back to the Super 8s as well. So I think Roscommon are fairly sick of us, and we're probably sick of them at the same time as well. Look, the game last year was a little bit bizarre. I remember being at that. One of probably Dublin's worst performances I've ever seen in Croke Park. I still stand by the fact that I think Roscommon didn't even play at their best that day as well, and I actually think they arguably should have won the game, could have won the game, missed some key chances obviously towards the end of that match. Coming into this game, like, the scenario and the story is completely changed. Like, Dublin obviously went on to win the All-Ireland. They've won every game in Croke Park in the championship obviously since then, obviously playing in Leinster. I mean, Dublin were always going to be winning those games, and Roscommon, it just hasn't worked at all. Like, obviously the group stages ended very badly last year, and then obviously got beat in that preliminary game by Cork. League form very poor, getting relegated. So we are worrying times for Roscommon coming into Dublin. Dublin were a little bit scarred in some ways against Louth. Like, certainly Dublin had a much closer test in that game, and by no means was it Dublin's best performance. But we know Dublin are going to click into gear at some point, whether it'll be this weekend or later on, maybe in the final game of the preliminary round or potentially the quarterfinals. We know Dublin are in some ways holding themselves back in reserve. There's no doubt about that, much like what Kerry are doing and what we've obviously seen from them as well. However, I do think there does need to be a big performance here for Dublin, because Roscommon are a good side. Yes, they struggled this year, but they have players that can hurt you. Dara Craig, 4 points the last day versus Mayo, was very impressive. I don't think we've saw the best of Enda Smith so far this year for Roscommon, but he's always a player that can do damage. And look, Roscommon will bring a very similar game plan to what Louth brought, because obviously Roscommon probably set the template in some ways for doing that themselves last year. So they're going to get a lot of men behind the ball. They're going to try and frustrate the living daylights out of Dublin. They're going to keep the ball for large parts, just like what they done when they played Dublin last season. And they're going to try and make this as frustrating as possible for Dublin, as they should do, because I think if you go toe-to-toe with this Dublin side, you run the risk of getting beat comfortably. And I think the most important thing here for Roscommon is they can lose the game, fair enough, but don't get barred. Like, don't lose by 10, 12, 15 points. We saw Kerry and Monaghan as an example, like, just gone, and Kerry completely blew Monaghan out of the water, and like, confidence-wise, that will do so much damage for Monaghan going into the final 2 games. Whereas Roscommon, Mayo will be favourites when they play them in a couple of weeks, but it's not impossible for Roscommon to get something from that game, and I think they're more than good enough right now to beat Cavan as well, especially with Cavan's injury crisis. So, like, the season is not gone for Roscommon. There's still a lot of good things they can do this year. They just need to make sure they don't be on the receiving end of a hammering this weekend. And look, for Dublin, there are improvements certainly needed. I thought Paul Mannion was poor enough against Louth. James McCarthy's obviously been in and out, and we're waiting still to see the best of him so far this year. It's been hard to judge Cluxton as well. He looked a little bit sluggish against Meath. You couldn't really judge him against Louth, because Louth, like, I mean, Cluxton was just kicking straight into midfield because Louth had every man inside their own 30-metre line. So for Dublin, there is some performances that need to improve. We still probably haven't seen the best of Costello, haven't seen the best obviously of Basquel as well. So for Dublin, there's still a level to go up on. Con O'Callaghan, as we know, has been in Footballer of the Year form. Brian Fenton's obviously been brilliant as well. And I think Dublin will grind it out. I think they will be too strong for Roscommon. I think it will be a bit of a cagey game. I think Dublin will always be in control of the game. I actually think it will be a very similar game to the Dublin and Louth game, but I do think Dublin will perform and play a lot better. There'll be a lot more bang up for it, and I think ultimately Dublin will come through. I'm going to go with a 6-point win for Dublin. I think Roscommon will certainly have their moments. Most important thing for them is just to stay in this game, and like score difference could be important. Who knows what might happen? So score difference could be very vital when it goes down the home stretch, but I am going to go for a 6-point win for Dublin. Donegal versus Tyrone, I suppose, is another big standout game that's happening as well. Obviously, the other game in this group at the weekend was, of course, Cork and Clare, and we saw, obviously, Cork get over the line in that game. Look, it's huge, absolutely big. This one, look, you would imagine Donegal and Tyrone will get out of this group. I think you couldn't imagine Clare beating any of these two, in all honesty. So Donegal and Tyrone should both get out. Look, it'll be interesting to see how this game is. We obviously saw this a couple of weeks ago. It was very cagey, it was very nervy. Tyrone very, very close to getting over the line, and I thought it was arguably their best performance of the season against Donegal that day. Like, there's not as much jeopardy on the line here, so will this game be more open? Will it be more attacking? For Donegal, like, they've got over the line now in Ulster. They've had a major piece of silverware. They can probably afford a loss, but at the same time, you don't want to give up home. You don't want to lose at home in Ballybuffet. And you also, as well, like for Donegal, if they can finish first in their group, it will mean they'll avoid both Dublin and Kerry, you'd imagine, in an All-Ireland quarter-final. So that will be huge for Donegal, because I think Dublin and Kerry are arguably the two sides that I'd be confident can beat Donegal. Aside from that, I think Donegal can beat anyone on their day, in all honesty. So I think for them, most important thing, obviously, will be to win this game, win the group and everything else. And look, I still don't think we've saw the absolute best from Donegal yet. I don't think they're the finished article. Year one for Jim McGuinnes. He's done extraordinarily well so far. I don't think they will win the All-Ireland. They are dark horses and everything else. There's no doubt about that. Like, Oisin Gallen's been in phenomenal form. Patrick McBrearty obviously still to come back in. Roy McHugh's been very good, as he always has been for Donegal down the years. Tyrone, though, like they are very unpredictable, and these are the type of games that Tyrone tend to play better in, as opposed to when they're playing teams like Cavan and Cork and whatnot. We know the brilliance of Dara Canavan. We know the damage that he can do on that inside line. The paces at which he runs with the ball is outstanding. Kieran Daly's obviously been a great addition to the team as well. I think this game will be a bit more open. I think there'll be goals. I think that it will be entertaining. It won't be as cagey as before. But I think Donegal at home in Ballybuffet, I think that is going to be the difference, in my opinion. Look, it finished as a draw, ultimately, until extra time came around. This could be a draw as well. Like, I would not be surprised if this was a draw. Tyrone have obviously had a bit of a layoff. Will Donegal be battle-hardened? Will they be a little bit wounded, tired and everything else after an intense Ulster final, and, of course, obviously an intense semi-final versus Tyrone as well? But I'm going to say Donegal get over the line. I think Patrick McBrearty will be back in the fold now for Donegal, and I think he will do key damage for this Donegal side. So I'm going to go with a 3-point... Actually, no. I'm going to go with a 2-point win for Donegal. I think they're narrowly going to get over the line. But again, like, this is one that's very hard to call. You've got Louth versus Meath, which is up next. This game is taking place in Inniskeen in Monaghan. So Louth, obviously, playing their home game in Monaghan, which of course is interesting, to be fair. Obviously they would have played their home game at Park Talchin, but obviously with playing Meath, I mean, that would have made absolutely zero sense. And RD, unfortunately, does not quite have the attendance or whatever. I've actually never been to that stadium, in fairness, so I can't really talk too much about it, but definitely will be on my places to go to at some point in the future. Hopefully Louth can get up to Division 1. That would be absolutely brilliant, in fairness. But look, in terms of this game, interesting enough, Jordan Morris is going to be injured for Meath, which is a huge blow for them. Louth done so much right against Dublin. There's a real feel-good factor around Louth football right now. The under-20s beating Dublin, obviously, a couple of weeks ago as well. Conor Grimes in the form of his life. We know what Samuel Roy can do. Him on frees, like, he nails absolutely every free. It's just quite incredible to see at the best of times. So Louth are in very, very good form at the moment, and like, obviously it's not at home. They will obviously have the majority of the home support there, I presume. Like, the majority of tickets would have went to Louth fans. And look, Ger Brennan had a game plan versus Dublin. They were very defensive, frustrated the living daylights out of Dublin. I don't think it will be the same in this game. They will press up on Meath. They will try and go for them. It is obviously a derby as well. A lot of history obviously in this fixture, in fairness. But Meath, in fairness, do have players that can do damage, in fairness. Like, you look at Owen Frayne, who I think has been in very good form this year. Matthew Costello is a very good forward as well. So it's a hard one to call, in all honesty, but I fancy Louth, and I think Louth are shaping up to be a bit of a, I wouldn't say like a dark horse or anything like that, a bit of a surprise package. Like, I could see Louth getting second in this group, and I could see them maybe getting into an All-Ireland quarter-final. I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility, and like, what an achievement that would be for Ger Brennan, for Louth, and it would be absolutely great to see, obviously, as a neutral perspective on this one as well. And look, for Meath, I think with how things are looking with Monaghan right now, like, Meath will fancy their chances against Monaghan as well. They really, really will. And like, I could see a scenario right now where both Louth and Meath get out of this group. I do think it's very, very possible. I'm going to go for a Louth win. I think Conor Grimes will be too hot to handle. I think Samuel Roy will be too hot to handle. Tommy Dernan, obviously around midfield, outstanding player as well. And one thing I noticed from seeing both of these two teams up close in the flesh at Croke Park, Louth physically, in terms of size, stature, like, they were able to compete with Dublin. Like, they've got a lot of very experienced veteran lads there, whereas Meath have a lot of young players, and it's just not, Meath just aren't quite there yet. I think Colm O'Rourke has taken them in the right direction, and I think Meath are improving, and I think they're very likely to be back in the All-Ireland series again next year, in my opinion. But I do think Louth are just a little bit ahead, in my opinion, right now, and I'm going to go for a 2-point win for Louth. Armagh versus Westmeath is the last game to discuss. Look, on paper, it should be a very straightforward, easy win for Armagh. But as we very well know, when these two played each other last year in the group stages, in the exact same game as well, a lot of games, by the way, a lot of the same type of games happening in the group stages, which probably is a little bit frustrating. This game happened last year, and Armagh barely got over the line. Like, Westmeath were leading going into the final couple of minutes, and Armagh just about snuck it out and managed to get the victory. I think Armagh need to go for this, let the shackles off, run at Westmeath. None of this keeping the ball for large parts, trying to manage the game when they're not actually really managing it effectively. They need to go out and beat Westmeath and put a statement out. Like, not necessarily a bat run or anything like that, but they need to put this game to bed early. Do you know what I mean? Because if they allow Westmeath to keep in it with players like John Heslin, Ronan O'Toole, Sam McCartan, Ray Connellan, like, they will do damage. And Westmeath are a good side. Like, they've had a very unusual year. Losing to Wicklow, obviously, in the championship was one of the most bizarre results of the year. They obviously got promoted. Like, they beat down, obviously, in the Division 3 final, hence why they're in the All-Ireland Championship as opposed to down. But, like, I do think Westmeath are the type of side against bigger opposition that can raise their game, that can cause problems, and that was very evident in the group stages last year. In saying that, though, I think Armagh should be too strong. Obviously, Rian O'Neill came off the last day, looked like he was limping a little bit when he came off the pitch, so will that be an injury? It's hard to know. But they have a huge amount of talent in Stephen Campbell, Conor Turba. Rory Grugan was quiet enough, I felt, in the Ulster final, so they'll be hoping for a lot more of him, in fairness. But yeah, I think Armagh's quality should be too much. I would be a little bit worried about Armagh overplaying the ball, overthinking it, and getting themselves in a bad scenario, because, look, with Derry losing to Galway, this represents a massive chance for Armagh, because if they beat Westmeath, which you would expect, their next game is against Derry. Now, it is away from home, so it will be difficult, and it will, Derry losing 3 games in a row for Derry will be a little bit mental, but Derry have injuries, obviously a suspension with Garrett McKinless as well. So Armagh have a chance in that game, and that would be a huge psychological boost for Armagh if they could beat Derry. Like, that would be a massive, massive win, and it represents a massive opportunity. But if they don't win this game, all that goes out the window, and the chance to put Derry under a huge amount of pressure goes completely out the window. So I am going to go for an Armagh victory. I'm going to go for a 5-point win. I think they need to put out a performance here. They need to brush off some of the cobwebs of a very disappointing penalties defeat, obviously, in the Ulster final, and I think they will, and I think they'll go out and beat Westmeath by 5 points. In terms of player of the week and bet of the week, I suppose, let's pick a player of the week from each game. So Dublin Roscommon, look, Con O'Callaghan is the very obvious choice, and he is the most likely. Like, he has been Dublin's best player this year alongside Brian Fenton, but I'm hoping for a big game from Paul Mannion. In fairness, looking at Donegal, Tyrone, like, Oisin Gallen's been outstanding for Donegal this year, in fairness, but I would look towards Caleb McGonigal as well. I think he's been a bit of a unsung hero in this Donegal side. Louth and Meath, like how will Meath deal with the physicality and the strength and size of a player like Conor Grimes, who, for a man that tall, I've never seen a man that tall move with the ball so quickly. Like, he is quite an incredible player. And Armagh Westmeath, Stephen Campbell, I think, can do big damage in this game. Bet of the week, like, there probably isn't really too many there. Could you see Roscommon beating Dublin? I couldn't. Donegal, Tyrone, I'd imagine would be fairly even enough. Donegal maybe slight favourites. Westmeath beating Armagh, like, you'd probably get great odds on that. And to be fair, it could happen because Armagh are just so unpredictable, and Westmeath do tend to raise their game in these type of matches. So maybe that might be worth a punt in fairness. But even at that, I do still think Armagh will be too strong. Ultimately though, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up here. Let me know your predictions for this weekend's games in the comments down below. We'll be at the Dublin Roscommon game, so very much looking forward to it. And yeah, hopefully we can get revenge on the Rossies after they held us to a very famous draw last year. And yeah, hopefully the other games are exciting. I don't think Louth Meath is on TV, which is very disappointing, actually, considering like big rivalry and everything else. Would have been a great game to watch, but unfortunately that is the way things work in the GA right now. But do let me know your predictions in the comments down below, and as I said earlier, if you could hit the like button and subscribe, that'd be absolutely great as well. My name is Aaron. Catch you all in the next one.